You've said what many would say are racist things about Palestinians, Arabs, Muslims. You said the Arab world as it is today is barbarian.
That's true.
If somebody said to you the Jews are barbarians, I think you would agree that's anti-Semitic. For Palestinians, Zionism, it is ethnic cleansing.
That, in my view, justified cleansing Arabs from Palestine.
So you're fine with it?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
I am a Riva and I was taught how to pray Salah.
That means every single time I pray,
the person who told me gets the reward.
5 times a day, from Fajr to Isha.
If you want to support someone like me in learning Salah,
then sponsor 10 people for just £100.
Remember the Prophet, peace be upon him, said,
Charity does not decrease wealth. Click the button and donate now.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. If you're watching this video and it's Salah time, please pause it and go pray and come back when you're done. Please check out the description section of this video to support the channel. I came across yet another excellent debate featuring Mehdi Hasan, where he took on a supposed Israeli historian who is extremely anti-Palestine in his views, to the point he was brazenly spewing rhetoric promoting Jewish supremacy. This guy displayed levels of Zionism that were at times more extreme than genocidal Israeli government officials themselves, which of course Mehdi skillfully exposed via his line of questioning, leaving his opponent dumbfounded over and over again. Let's watch the first clip.
We've all seen with our own eyes the Israelis in Gaza commit war crimes on camera, kill unarmed people who are carrying white flags, blow up apartment buildings, drop 2,000-pound bombs on crowded refugee camps. Can we at least agree, Benny, even if we're going to disagree on genocide, that Israel has committed numerous war crimes?
I'm fairly sure there have been war crimes, but the war itself is not a war crime, as the Hamas attack on Israel on the 7th of October was.
You accept there have been war crimes?
Yes.
So you would support an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu?
I didn't say that.
Why?
I don't know if you can hold a prime minister responsible if a sergeant kills several unarmed people intentionally.
You don't think the Israeli Air Force bombing apartment buildings, refugee camps, mosques, cemeteries, hospitals, schools, universities, libraries?
Firstly, it hasn't bombed, as far as I know, hospitals. They have attacked...
Literally no expert agrees with you on that.
Israel has raided hospitals, but with infantry.
Let me ask you this question.
It's found Hamas people in their Hamas headquarters, inside hospitals, under hospitals.
Actually, we've never seen the headquarters of Benjamin Netanyahu. I put a beautiful Bond movie video out for. We've never actually seen that from underneath Al-Shifa. It's been several months. We're still waiting for that. So on the 31st of October, according to Human Rights Watch, Israeli forces unlawfully attacked a 6-story residential building, killing 106 civilians, including 54 children, without warning. 4 strikes, completely demolished. Human Rights Watch found no evidence of a military target in the vicinity, making the strike unlawful, indiscriminate under the laws of war. Israeli authorities have provided no justification for the attack.
The Hamas always hides their own casualties.
Even the Israelis didn't say that they were hiding in the apartment building. You're offering a better defense to the government than the government is.
I don't know. I don't know the particulars of that particular attack. It could be that there was a war crime committed there. It could also be that there were hundreds of Hamas fighters in the building alongside... Wait, have you ever seen footage coming out of the Gaza Strip?
I'm not a Palestinian journalist. I'm a foreign journalist. And guess what? We're not allowed in by the Israelis.
They are hiding their casualties.
So let me ask you this.
But each mission of the Israeli Air Force, and it's probably the most accurate and efficient arm of the Israeli military, is checked beforehand by a lawyer, etc., to see if there are actual is there evidence, evidence of...
I'm so glad
Hamas
you're pointing this out,
there.
because it's not a rogue operation. It goes all the way up. See, we can indict Netanyahu for these attacks because it's gone up the chain of command. It's not a rogue sergeant. It's not a rogue sergeant. We agree. All right. You say it's not genocide. Can we at least agree that it's genocidal rhetoric and genocidal intent from various members of the Israeli government?
Yes.
Can we agree that the rhetoric from Netanyahu and Herzog and Smotrich, this is genocidal rhetoric?
Some of the ministers, I'm not sure about Herzog's quotes, and I'm not sure about what Netanyahu said, that some of the ministers...
Netanyahu said Amalek, Benny. You know what Amalek means.
I don't know if that's the same as genocide, but...
Killing every man, woman and child,
I don't know.
and the donkeys.
If there was genocidal intent by the Israeli government with the Israeli military machine to commit genocide in Gaza, there would be hundreds of thousands of Gazan dead.
I'm sure.
That is called genocide.
That's not the definition of genocide. But okay, let me ask you this.
That's not your definition.
No, it's the 1948 Genocide Convention.
There's lots of different.
Forget it. Forget the 1948 Genocide Convention.
There are lots of definitions.
That's not true, Benny. There's only one. There's only one. It's the 1948 Genocide Convention.
That sounds dogmatic. There's only one. There's only one truth, the Hamas truth. Sound the same.
Is the 1948 Genocide Convention a Hamas charter? Is everything Hamas, Benny?
Despite Mehdi outlining how the Israeli military dropping 2,000-pound bombs on refugee camps are blatant war crimes, along with them shooting unarmed Palestinian civilians and blowing up family homes, which is all documented on camera, Mehdi's guest Benny Morris was reluctant to admit these atrocities are even war crimes. And what's worse is, he claimed that what happened on October 7th in Israel was more severe than 2 years of genocide in Gaza. Bear in mind that Israel's Prime Minister is implicated in planning October 7th, as well as the evidence that shows the Israeli military killed many of their own citizens on that day, facts that Benny conveniently didn't mention. And despite Benny's admission that the Israeli regime did commit war crimes, he refused to acknowledge that Benjamin Netanyahu should be held responsible for killing tens of thousands of Palestinians. Well done to Mehdi for catching out this genocide apologist as he tripped over his own lies that basically implicated Netanyahu as being a war criminal after he mistakenly let slip that every strike Israel carries out is a government decision from the top down. As Mehdi said, the IDF have bombed hospitals, mosques, cemeteries, libraries, schools and universities, as well as churches, businesses and homes. And for this Zionist to brush that off as if it does not require accountability is just disgusting. On top of that, he even denied Israel has bombed a single hospital in Gaza over the past couple of years, which not only did Mehdi call out, even the audience ridiculed Benny for such obvious, lazy and sinister propaganda. The reality is that over 94% of hospitals have been bombed in Gaza. And as Mehdi stated, there is zero evidence to suggest that any of these hospitals were military bases, meaning Israel bombed them simply to inflict more suffering upon the Palestinian people. Mehdi also quoted human rights organisations to make the point that the same applies to the apartment buildings that Israel has bombed, where numerous children were killed at times while they slept. As Mehdi stated, Benny Morris is a shameless propagandist to blame Hamas for this, considering that not even the Israeli government did. And speaking of which, there is no spin that can be put on the genocidal statements made by Israeli officials, despite Benny's poor attempts to do so. This scam artist even went as far as to blame Hamas for the 1948 Genocide Convention's definition of genocide. Newsflash, Benny, Hamas did not exist in 1948. And as far as this awful man's claim that in order for the Israelis to qualify as having genocidal intent, the death toll would have to be in the hundreds of thousands. If we add the current projected death toll to the bodies estimated to be buried under 50 million tons of rubble in Gaza, the number of deaths are in the hundreds of thousands. Let's watch the next clip.
Israeli minister called Avi Dichter, member of the Security Cabinet, he said, we're now rolling out the Gaza Nakba. He was referring to the Nakba, the catastrophe of 1948, when an estimated 700,000 Palestinians were driven from their homes. So whether it's the 1948 Nakba or the 2024 Gaza Nakba, to quote Avi Dichter, for Palestinians, Zionism is Nakba. It is ethnic cleansing. Surely you of all people can recognize that.
I'm not sure I can recognize that, no.
I have a book here that says, on the most basic level, Jewish colonization meant expropriation and displacement. Zionist ideology and practice were necessarily and elementally expansionist. Zionism was a colonizing and expansionist ideology. That's Righteous Victims by Benny Morris.
I know. And
I want to read a quote to you. There are circumstances in history that justify ethnic cleansing. That is not a quote from Slobodan Milosevic. That is not a quote from a Rwandan genocidaire. It's your quote. And a lot of your critics say you no longer just document ethnic cleansing, you apologize for it as well.
What's the context?
The context is you're asked, do you condemn what they did in 1948, Zionist militias? You say no. You're asked, they perpetrated ethnic cleansing. You say there are circumstances in history that justify ethnic cleansing.
What was the circumstance I'm talking about?
You say, I know that this term I'm reading a quote. I know that this term is completely negative, but when the choice is between ethnic cleansing and genocide, the annihilation of your people, I prefer ethnic cleansing.
That, in my view, legitimized, justified cleansing Arabs from Palestine.
That doesn't justify ethnic cleansing,
They were
right?
joined...
You can't justify a war crime, a crime against humanity.
Ethnic cleansing is not regarded as a war crime by any...
So you're fine with it?
Yes, sure.
Even if that involves innocent people being driven from their homes and not allowed to come back?
Yes, from areas in which the Jews wanted to establish their state in part of Palestine.
A lot of talk about whether Zionism is a form of colonialism. If I said to you Zionism is something colonial, what would you say to that?
I would say there's some partial truth in it, but on large it's wrong. It's not a correct interpretation.
Those are Theodore Herzl's words. He wrote a letter to Cecil Rhodes, the founder of Rhodesia in Zimbabwe. He said it's something colonial.
Okay.
So maybe you should take it up with the founder of Zionism.
I can't take it up with Herzl.
Okay.
Herzl may have said that in order to
Not may, he did say
that. In an effort to ingratiate himself with the great colonizer. Zionism intended to liberate the Jews from the alienation and oppression under which they lived in Eastern Europe, also later Central Europe, by establishing a state of the Jews, with a majority of Jews, with Jews ruling over themselves. They ended up in part realizing that dream at the expense of Palestinians. This is correct.
Okay.
This is what happened, as it turned out. The Israeli government, I think the ministers debated whether to cut off water, cut off electricity, etc., etc. Lots of reporters have been saying, and the United Nations, that Gaza is on the verge of starvation, on the verge of famine, etc., etc. That has not happened.
Mehdi, how do you know that? How do you know that? And please,
I haven't read any report of anyone dying of starvation.
There have been many reports.
I haven't read any.
So that makes it nonsense because you haven't read any. You don't think there's a famine in northern Gaza?
No, I think there's a food problem there. I don't know what the word famine means. There is a food problem. There's malnutrition.
It's a big claims you're making. You should back it up with some evidence.
You should back it up.
Cindy McCain.
Who's Cindy McCain?
Is the head of the World Food Programme. She's the widow.
She said what? She said what?
She's the widow of Senator John McCain, the most pro-Israeli senator of my lifetime.
She said what?
She said northern Gaza is in a full-blown famine and that there are children, women and children in skeletal states there.
Did anybody die of starvation?
Yes, there have been documented cases. You said there was no famine a moment ago.
I didn't say. I said I don't know what famine is.
Well, that's a good get-out, and it's at the core of the discussion.
Like Mehdi said, for the Palestinians, Zionism is a definition of ethnic cleansing. Benny Morris is an Israeli extremist, a radical Zionist, and a Jewish supremacist maniac. On one hand, he denies ethnic cleansing is happening to the Palestinians, and on the other hand, he proudly encourages and justifies it, going as far as to claim it's not even a war crime. I was surprised when Mehdi quoted Benny's own book, which labelled Zionism as an expansionist and colonising ideology, which tells me there was a time when Benny Morris was somewhat truthful about Israel's actions. Either he was cashing in by appealing to the pro-Palestine side when he wrote that book, or he sold out to the Israelis after it was published. Either way, the man is a walking contradiction. As Mehdi stated, the founder of Zionism was open about it being a form of colonialism, which made Benny squirm in his seat after he flip-flopped on the definition. At the very least, Benny's hypocrisy not only exposes him, but Israel as a nation. He again lets slip that Zionism is a Jewish European invention, which is clear evidence that the majority of modern-day Israelis are not indigenous to that land, better known as Greater Palestine. Benny also admitted that the Jewish ethno-state can only exist at the expense and oppression of Palestinians, but then went on to deny the starvation of Palestinians at the hands of his beloved nation. To do so in front of a live audience, as well as a formidable opponent such as Mehdi Hasan, is simply a terrible idea, especially when reports suggest nearly 500 people in Gaza, including 150 children, have died because of starvation since October 2023 due to Israel's constant blockades. And that's just the ones we know about, with the actual number predicted as being much higher due to over 500,000 people being trapped in famine. Mehdi also quoted the official World Food Programme's executive director as assessing that Gaza was suffering a full-blown famine. And when Benny was caught lying about Palestinians not being starved to death, he acted as if he didn't know the meaning of the word famine despite speaking perfect English. This is not only disgraceful, it's comical and horrifically lazy propaganda. Let's watch the last clip.
You've said what many would say are racist things about Palestinians, Arabs, Muslims. You've called them barbarians. You've said they have no moral inhibitions. You've said they ought to be caged. You've said Palestinian citizens of Israel are a time bomb, a fifth column, the emissary of the enemy.
I got the gist.
I know, but the audience need to hear it.
Okay.
You say you're a liberal and you believe in the peace process. A lot of Palestinians would say, how do we make peace with people who say they're liberal Zionists and they think of us in this way?
I'm talking about both Hamas and Fatah terrorists. I called barbarians and they behaved.
Not just them.
And I did, no, I called them barbarians and they behaved like barbarians.
You didn't call all Arabs barbarians?
No, I didn't.
You did actually in 2004 in Haaretz. You said the Arab world as it is today is barbarian.
That's true. They said the Arab world is barbarian in its behavior.
What does that mean? If somebody said to you, and I would say this is anti-Semitic, if somebody said to you the Jews are barbarians, the Jewish world is barbarian, I think you would agree that's anti-Semitic. And if somebody said, well, I'm not being anti-Semitic because I'm just talking about the IDF.
I don't think it would be anti-Semitic, it would be false. That's the point.
You don't think it would be anti-Semitic for me to say the Jewish world is barbarian?
It would be false, not necessarily anti-Semitic.
And when you say the Israeli Arabs are a time bomb, they're a potential fifth column. That's all of them. You didn't say some.
Israel's Arab minority, which identifies in large measure with the Palestinian cause, is, in the long historical perspective, a potential time bomb. Yes, I would agree with that.
You said they're a potential fifth column.
Or a potential fifth column, yes.
An emissary of the enemy that is among us. This is vicious stuff.
No, I don't remember using the word enemy.
Whether you remember it or not is irrelevant. You said it. Their slide into complete Palestinization has made them an emissary of the enemy that is among us.
It depends on context. You keep quoting things without explaining the context.
I'm not sure there is any context for dismissing an entire people as a fifth column.
Nobody is... Okay, go ahead.
Here's something else you said. You said, we're talking about murder in far larger numbers. It's not a matter of money, referring to Palestinians in Israel. It's the society's nature. Yes, I would say that's a racist comment to say an entire society has a murderous nature.
During the Second Intifada...
This was said in 2019, Benny, not in the Second Intifada. It's not my fault if you can't remember when you said things. In 2019, you said, we're talking about murder. It's the society's nature. It's not just the racism that you've been accused of. You've also been accused of warmongering. You just recently wrote a Haaretz column where you said Israel should consider nuking Iran to prevent them from acquiring nuclear weapons. Not even Benjamin Netanyahu has said that. You've said it.
Well, he's more responsible. He's a prime minister.
So you're irresponsible.
Yes. I've been advocating an Israeli strike against the Iranian nuclear project.
You didn't call for a nuclear strike in 2008 on Iran?
No, I didn't.
This is my problem, Benny. You keep saying you don't remember.
No, I do.
The New York Times,
no.
July the 18th, 2008, an Israeli nuclear strike to prevent the Iranians from taking the final steps towards getting the bomb is probable.
Just when we thought it couldn't get any worse, Mehdi Hasan exposed Benny Morris as being a racist, quoting the many derogatory remarks he's made about Arabs, Muslims and Palestinians. It just seems there is a glaring moral decay in every single Israeli propagandist, as none of them display any goodness or positivity. They're either aggressively negative or arrogantly sinister and cruel, or all of the above. But I guess that's what it takes to defend indiscriminate killing and colonialism. Hearing Mehdi quote Benny as referring to Palestinians as animals was bad enough, but to hear he holds the same views about Israeli Arabs and Muslims who live under apartheid in Israel again debunks the propaganda claim that Israel is a democracy and not a dictatorship. Mehdi also called out the fact that Benny is supposedly a liberal Zionist compared to the more radical variety. However, after watching this, for me there's no such thing. It's simply extreme, regardless of how some may try to repackage it. Not only is Benny Morris awful at propaganda, Mehdi Hasan was on point with his research as always. Because Benny's feeble attempts to pass his racism off as only being limited to Palestinian political entities were hilariously met with Mehdi quoting him being an outright bigot, which Benny then folded and admitted to. This guy is a complete moron. I mean, he either denied or just forgot the numerous racist public statements he's made until Mehdi pointed them out. As Mehdi said, if he were to repeat the dehumanizing comments Benny has made about Arabs and Muslims in reference to Israelis and Jews, there would be an absolute uproar. And to top it all off, Benny was outed by Mehdi as also being a warmonger who wants Iran to be nuked to oblivion, which Benny did not deny. In fact, he was proud of it. If this doesn't confirm that Zionism is a deranged, demonic and dangerous ideology and its followers are psychopaths and extremists, then nothing else will. However, the scary part is we still have to figure out how we can free ourselves from such a powerful evil. Mehdi Hasan was spectacular as always, and well done to him for another great performance. Thank you for watching. Until next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Allahu Akbar, Allah.